the next driver question was, how do you get people who honestly wanted to do this delivery job, but soon decide the requirements and demands are not sustainable and sticks around only till they find something new and now gets careless with everything, vans, doors, dollies, rabbit. You got to respect the equipment and then let them know that the equipment needs to be respected. So how do you do that? Right? You audited it. Let's look at these phones. Hey guys, whoa, we're destroying these phones. Can we handle them with care? And that you let the driver know that damage the phone. Hey, I know you get rough out there, but this phone looks like it's been drop kicked through the uprights of a field goal post. And when it landed, the van ran it over. Now, obviously the driver didn't do it on purpose, but there has to be accountability for that kind of stuff. So accountability comes from inspections, right? And when you inspect the vans every day, as I did, I went through every van every day. I did a full walk around. Here's an example of that. I'm going to show you a video of how I checked every van in my fleet every single morning, 7 days a week. Okay, so every morning what you should do is show up several hours before loadout. Maintenance fleet manager or fleet personnel should check these vehicles to make sure that there's no dashboard indicators, to make sure that there's no low tire pressure indicators, to make sure that every single door functions properly, checks the side steps, the side mirrors, the tail lights for cracks, checks the windshield for cracks. And this doesn't take very long. I'm gonna show you how to do that right now. We're gonna go ahead and do van number 20. Let's go ahead and unlock it. Go ahead and go in the passenger door. First things first, we are going to get in, close the doors, and start it up. If it's cold out, you're gonna wanna turn the heater on so the van warms up, especially if you're in a cold environment. So we look at the dashboard and we see that there are no indicators. That's the first thing that's gonna show up. Now, we're going to check the turn signal and make sure it's clicking at an appropriate rate. If it's clicking too fast, you probably have a turn signal light out somewhere, either on the mirrors or on the tail lights or on the front, okay? We also want to check the windshield wiper fluid and make sure that there is fluid. You also want to check the gasoline and make sure that it was filled up the night before. If not, tell the driver or go fill it up if you have time, okay? The next thing we're gonna do is we're going to go into the back and we're gonna make sure that the lights turn on. And as you notice, I walk back toward it, the lights will turn on, they're motion activated. Drivers have a lot of toad stack here. Sometimes it plays with this motion sensor, or if a driver puts a bungee cord in front of the motion sensor, the driver's probably gonna say something like, oh, my light doesn't work. These Ford Transit vans, when you open the sliding door, aim this way. Notice how the rest of those lights go on, okay? And then they shut off when the door is closed. Take a look at this. I'm gonna turn off the ignition, okay? Aim the camera that way. When I turn off the ignition, the lights also come on. So if drivers are complaining that there's not enough light in the back of their cab, tell them to turn off their engine like they're supposed to, okay? Just turn this baby back on, and you see the lights come on. When we open the sliding door during the basic check in the morning, we wanna make sure that it opens smoothly and that it locks, okay? It locks in place. We also wanna check the side step and make sure that it is not bent. If it is bent, you don't send it out, okay? And then release the door, go ahead and hop up inside. Close the door and make sure that the dashboard indicator shows that there's no door open. Good. Then come back to the back doors. We want to make sure that these are functioning properly and that both doors open. While you're back here, okay, check your tail lights and make sure that none of these are cracked. If any of these are cracked, it's a groundable offense because that's a safety item. Also make sure that the reverse camera contraption at the top is not broken, damaged housing, and functions properly. Come up to the front. This is your side mirror. Make sure none of the glass is cracked, either ones. And also, this gets hit all the time. You should have some of these in stock. If this is cracked, it is a groundable event because that is a turn signal indicator, which is a safety item. Next, we look at the windshield. Make sure there's no cracks in the windshield, no dings or spider webs along the windshield. If it is, you need that windshield replaced, or you need a glass repair. If it's just a tiny rock chip, you can use a rock chip repair. They're kind of expensive, but if you get your own kit and learn how to do it, you can save yourself a lot of money by preventing those rock chips from spreading into large cracks by filling them in with the appropriate resin. That is the basic check on a vehicle that should be done every morning for every vehicle in your fleet. This ensures that when your drivers get in the vehicle, they're not reporting any problems to you. The next driver question is a pretty good one. So how do we conform delivering for Amazon into a job that doesn't feel like a never-ending boot camp? Go, 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 go. Dragging totes in the rain. Walking up steps with kitty litter, dog food, cases of water, loading the van with the bullhorn counting down. Is this job a never-ending boot camp? That is the question. And I completely understand that. And it does feel like that sometimes, but it doesn't always have to be, right? When the DSP gets their act together and they are functioning at a higher level because they're, leading by example, they're listening to their drivers' problems and then actually capturing them and solving those problems. And the stress on the driver is just 100% going to be about the job and not the other stuff, right? Leaders should be taking care of that other stuff. But it is a grueling job. Drivers are paid fairly well if you compare it to some of the other available job opportunities out there, which are dwindling because of artificial intelligence and a number of other things. It's a grueling job, but you know what? Somebody's got to do it. Robots aren't going to be able to figure out how to, get around a whole bunch of problems entering a customer's gate or something along those lines. So for a while, this job is still going to be there until autonomous robots take that over too. So in the meantime, yeah, it can be tough, especially during Prime Week peak and those other times. But if we meet that task head on and do the best we can to get our job done and do it the safest that we can do it, the more that you do it, your muscle memory starts to do it faster for you. And I do talk about this in my book. But yeah, it does feel like a never-ending boot camp until you're done training and learning. Now, you're never done learning, and there'll always be experiences that surprise you. But surprisingly, many of my drivers actually got bored with the job. Like they were bored with it to the point that I was trying to have to find something else for them to do. So I tried to create a pathway at my DSP for them to move up or capture some other jobs that were needed at the organization. For example, training. So the method that I used was we kind of had a step ladder. So step one was become a driver that's good. And when they start to get bored, they'll tell you about it. I tried to have a step ladder type process for drivers to be able to climb in the organization when they got bored. So many drivers, when they get to the expert level, they get bored with what they're doing. And I had many drivers who experienced this and they wanted more. And sometimes the positions in the organization are limited. So some of the different positions that we had were after they become expert in their craft as a delivery associate, they could become a sweeper. A sweeper is somebody who goes around and picks up packages from other drivers. But our sweepers had to be pretty darn good. Sweepers, once they become a sweeper, they actually get more exposure to more delivery areas to increase driver affinity. Typically about 66% of the time, the driver is in their area. And that's so they become more familiar with the customer notes, how to solve the problems in that delivery area on that route. And they become really comfortable with that route. And drivers will get possessive about routes. I've noticed that. And then the other 34% of the time, they may get another route based on volume or whatever the circumstance is. or, somebody called out and they had to swap a route, and, they put them in a place that they're, not familiar with. But that driver affinity keeps people kind of in a little net. When a sweeper has to go pick up packages from other drivers, they get exposure to the whole RGU, the whole delivery area. And so they become exposed to more problems. And the more problems that a driver has experience solving, the more experience that they have as a driver, and more tools that they have in their tool belt to be able to solve a vast array of problems that a driver who's in their same area all the time may not be familiar with how to solve. But if you just take people and move them around all the time, they can be very frustrated. And that's why they have this driver affinity, where they try to keep people in an area, because too much exposure to too many places at once can cause a driver to become extremely frustrated. So when we move a driver up into the sweeper position, they get exposure to more problems, but it's not like such a surprise to them. They know they're doing that. And when they get all that experience and they become really good in the RGU or delivery area, and they have spent some time in there, maybe about a year after they became a driver. So at 6 months, if a driver picked up everything, because our training was pretty good, if they became really good and they became a sweeper and they did that for several months, then they could go into becoming a trainer. And the way that we had training was we would train drivers to provide the one-day OJT ride-along, which is where my checklist comes in. On the screen here, you can see I've got the driver training field guide, DSP on the job training. Now, what this was is my training checklist. So this is the training checklist that I gave to my trainers in a digital format that they could actually check it off and I could monitor it live. So basically, I'm in the process of putting this book out there. And once it's finished, people will be able to use it to train their drivers. Now, I left it kind of general and not super specific, because every DSP and every RGU delivery area is different. People in New York, downtown, have a much different experience than people in Western Washington and Spokane. Much different, right? But the principles are still the same. The concepts are still the same. But the point of a checklist is to prevent you from forgetting things. If you forget things, then, the cracks start to fall through. So I got the driver training principles in there, and this is going to be a short book. This might only be 100 pages. But it's going to be a checklist that you can have open, and you can go through the training day. Now that driver's been a sweeper, and then they become a trainer for new drivers, and they have this training guide to be able to explain to a new driver on their one-day OJT ride-along on a Nursery 1, giving them exposure to almost everything that other drivers in the past have had problems with, and the solutions that we use at this DSP to solve them. And that was the idea behind it, because if you're just sending the driver out with an experienced driver, what are they teaching them? We don't know. And so I sought to, make this driver training field guide a methodology that is a checklist that prevents us from forgetting those things, right? Now, each DSP will be able to fill in the blanks on how they want their checklist run. But if, the drivers are all getting red light violations within days of their first OJT ride-along, then we know that there's a problem in that training checklist. So you go back to that checklist and you plug it in there so that all new drivers get exposure to that problem on their first day. And that's a smart way of doing it, in my opinion, because that's what I used, and we had a winning system. I didn't even look at my scorecard for like the last 12 weeks. I don't need to see it because I know what the input is, right? And when we get those problems like, oh man, 4 drivers have damaged the van on this one spot. I look at the trainer and go, okay, they all had different trainers. So let's go look at the checklist and then go down to that point in the checklist and go, aha, I have a problem with the way that this is being explained. So I then change the checklist so that it explains it in a way that prevents those problems from happening, right? This is a pretty smart way of doing it, in my opinion. So I've got that book is going to be coming out, and that's to supplement the unofficial guide for Amazon DSP delivery associates, which is sort of an overall way to use leadership through training. It explains from driver all the way to leader in that book using the methodologies that I learned worked. Now, are they all right? No. Are they all wrong? No. Is it a way that worked for us? Yes. Could it work for you? Absolutely. The things that you learn in there are really important concepts for DSP. The audiobook is best. The written book is really good for people who are visual learners. If you use both, then you've got visual and auditory. And then the videos that I post on this channel are going to also supplement for kinesthetic, showing the job, right? So when you couple all 3 of those together, you have the 3 learning methodologies covered, right? The one thing that's always missing from those is the leader, right? Now I try to demonstrate how I led, tried to explain how I led, but that stand-up briefing and being there for your drivers when they got a problem and listening to them, that's the key. Drivers, they interface with the fleet. That's how most logistics companies actually have their driver trainer leaders their driver leaders are mostly fleet, and they interface with the drivers. What were the problems that van had? Or, the drivers are reporting that problem and they're reporting it to a person, right? If they mark it on their DVIC and then the fleet manager goes and talks to that driver, maybe at the next stand-up or the next time they see them and actually interfaces with them about that problem, the driver tells them, yeah, I went to go open the back door and the handle pulled and nothing happened. And he goes, what were you doing when that happened? And the driver tells him, well, I was kind of moving really fast and I yanked on that. Nah, buddy, it's not your fault. Those internal mechanisms in the lock, a lot of that stuff's made out of plastic by the manufacturer. So they've only got, so much wear and tear, and they're not really designed for driver usage on the back doors for Ram ProMasters or Ford Transits. And so what I've done is I've begun the process of writing my Amazon DSP fleet management book, Strategies from a Winning System. And what this does is it couples, the principles of the unofficial guide for Amazon DSP delivery associates with the driver trainer field guide and provides the interface between the fleet manager and the drivers. Because when they work together, then you have this combination of things necessary for the critical functioning of the DSP. And that's my philosophy on this, and that's what I did. I did it very well, and we were highly successful. At one point, one of the station staff who was required to do the VSA inspections during loadout said that they were getting in trouble because they weren't marking a high enough percentage of our DSP's vehicle issues because there was no vehicles to mark. I had met all of the wear and tear standards on all my vehicles before they went up to loadout. And because I did a vehicle inspection every morning, I knew that the vans that I was sending up there with confidence, they were not going to get grounded on the pad. Every once in a while, we might miss something like, the tire tread was right at 330 seconds or 230 seconds, and it was really close. So it was too close to call, station grounded it. Okay, cool. Bring it down to our fleet area, and we swap that tire out, take the picture of it. They unground the vehicle, driver's gone, right? But we opened all the doors every morning for every van. and made sure all of the doors functioned properly. These are like crazy concepts if you're not taking care of your work, But I would then have my fleet staff or myself, we would be interfacing in the drivers prior to stand up, and the drivers would be confident that they could walk up to us and say, hey, I think there might be a problem with this van over here. Here's what I noticed yesterday. The door handle's starting to get harder to pull. And so my fleet staff would walk over there with them and take a look and go, hey, you know what? We're going to put this one to get cleaned up. It looks like there's gunk building up in the mechanism for the door handle. And that driver sees them either fixing the problem right there for them, getting out some WD-40, cleaning it, hitting it with some lithium grease. And then, is that better for you? And the driver goes, yeah, that is a lot better. How do you think that makes a driver feel about their company? Probably pretty good when they know that they're getting that kind of feedback loop. So in this training guide for Amazon DSP Fleet Management, it's going to take me a little while longer, but it's really important. So we're going to go to the success of the team. Now, this is my philosophy, okay? And everybody's free to do their own DSP the way they want to. This was just what I found worked for us, and I consider it a winning system. So let's go to it. All right. It is imperative that driver and team morale be supported by a fleet that is clearly in good condition. It is also important that the fleet staff members know all the rules regarding the fleet. There are seemingly endless resources available to the DSP provided by Amazon. It is truly remarkable how much detail they provide for the resources they make available to the DSP. The issue is that the challenges overwhelm DSP operators before they have a chance to fully read and understand the process of setting up and managing a DSP fleet sustainably and economically. The DSP team becomes overwhelmed due to task saturation. Even at my peak of attention to detail, there were days when so many problems came in so fast that I barely had time to annotate each one, and a few slipped through the cracks. I was able to catch up on them the following day when they resurfaced, as problems tend to do, through my daily fleet inspection. If I had this system when I started, I would not have had that problem. As a DSP scales up in its target route commitment and increases the fleet size to 20 or 40 vans, the number of vehicle issues rises exponentially. Having a system in place that will accurately capture every single reported issue is critical to the success of the team. Failing to capture a vehicle issue that will lead to a grounding of a vehicle on the pad in a VSA inspection can lead to a breach of contract for a DSP. Many DSPs fall into this category, and after they get too many breaches of contract, they are on the verge of losing their contract or not having their contract renewed. I'm going to share with you what I learned over the last 36 months to operate a fleet efficiently. Ultimately, the drivers who have to take these vehicles need to have confidence in the DSP that they work for, and that they have the confidence that the van that they are driving is safe to drive, or that when they have problems with the vans, they know that their company is going to take care of it. If a driver gets into a van and the same old problem is there, and they don't see anything getting done to fix it, they will think poorly of their DSP and not be proud of them. The priority for the fleet is to instill confidence in the delivery drivers. And that is why I often say that, much like a spouse would say, the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. Well, the way to the heart of a driver is through their company taking care of their vehicles and solving their problems. Okay. And that's what this system intends to do. And there is enough of an outpouring here on this YouTube channel that I feel that it's necessary for this to be provided. This knowledge is in my head, and I'm going to do the best that I can to communicate it. One of the best ways to do that is by writing the book on it, right? So I wrote the unofficial guide for Amazon DSP delivery associates. I wrote that for drivers so that they could understand their job when they want to go beyond their job because they become really good at it, that there's avenues for their success and growth. After a driver has been a trainer for quite some time, and maybe they get bored with that, or maybe it's not their cup of tea, but they're good at it. Maybe they want to be a dispatcher. That's an excellent way. When you have to teach somebody how to do something, you learn that material even better than if you just read about it or watched it in a video or listened to it in an audiobook. When you have to teach somebody something, it cements that knowledge into your mind. So you have to find creative ways to explain how to solve a problem live when you're with that driver, teaching them how to do it and how to solve that problem. Okay, take your trainer now, and now you've got that rung on the ladder, right? So step 1 was sweeper. Okay. Step 2 was trainer. And then step 3, dispatcher. A dispatcher can get a phone call, and when the driver describes the problem, they've had experience to so many problems that they can actually walk the driver through how to solve that problem over the phone. Not just, giving them a call driver support or text driver support, which is better because it's faster. But when that driver's got a problem, that dispatcher knows those problems because they've had so much exposure to it that they can walk them through it, right? They should be able to recite how to overcome the data connectivity issues verbatim without even having the driver confirm that that's what they're actually seeing on their screen. They can picture it in their mind because they have so much exposure to it, right? And then after they're done being a dispatcher, they get cross-trained on different sections within the organization. Each DSP is different. They're their own business. Their DSP owners have personalities and they want things done their way or the way that they are comfortable with. But by cross-training, which I talk about in the unofficial guide for Amazon DSP delivery associates, cross-training on these different sections, right? They have the ability to fill in anywhere to meet the needs of the company. Now, the needs of the company are the needs of the drivers. If the drivers aren't getting that support, then you're going to be experiencing what most of the people are complaining about here. But I just wanted to let everybody know there are solutions to all these problems, right? It's just that there's no one way of doing everything. But by learning all of this information, being persistent, and overcoming that negativity. I have a chapter on overcoming negativity right in the beginning of my book. It's the first chapter of my book, Overcoming Negativity. There is a way. And primarily we do that through information control. Information control comes from experience, from those steps that the driver went through to become a leader who leads by example. That is this methodology. Once the second book, Driver Training Field Guide, is completed, I'll post about it. I'm pretty sure you guys will see it. I talk about how to set up the checklist, how to do it digitally in a task manager. Once I'm done with that book, I'll post it. And then once I'm done with the Amazon DSP fleet management, I'll publish that too. And this is all to help everybody because I can feel that frustration. I honestly thought for a couple of years there that everybody knew this information. But what I found is nobody was finding the truth for how things are done and why they're done the way they're done. And most people get burned out before they reach that level. I never got burned out. The reason why I never got burned out is because I knew every day there was going to be a driver with a question. And if a driver has a question, I wanted to be there to give them that answer. And don't think that you can't do that too.